My name is Damon Knight. I work for a company called CGI. You may remember a company in the UK called Logica. We were merged with CGI a couple of years ago, and I run the Microsoft profession in the UK, which essentially sees me looking after around 250 Microsoft professionals within the UK. I have a background with Microsoft of something like about 20 years, and at the moment I'm heavily involved with IoT. So hopefully today you're here to talk about and listen about IoT. Specifically, I'm not really going to talk too much about the cloud. I'm really going to talk about IoT, and also, more importantly, I'm not going to actually be talking about devices and that type of thing. A little bit of a humour at the beginning of here, and I'm sure you can resonate with our friend Dilbert on the screen. There is a lot of talk and a lot of hype around IoT at the moment, and I know we do have some colleagues on here whose probably main business is IoT, but I think even they would agree, people aren't buying IoT specifically as a solution on its own. There's always essentially a business transformation element to what we're doing. So today's slides are using a lot of the transforms that you see on the screen with impunity, so we're just going to have a little bit of fun this afternoon. So hopefully when we get to question and answer session later, you can delve into some of the more detailed questions, and hopefully I should be able to answer them. So CGI's track record really is around dealing with very complex and large solutions, and we were approached by Microsoft a couple of years ago to look at what they were going to be doing around what was called at the time ISS, which is, for those who don't know, is the Intelligence System Service provided by Microsoft. So this service is built, or was built, on Azure platform, and is currently only hosted on the west coast of the US at the moment. In the recent months, there's been a redefinition of what ISS is as an IoT-enabled service, and they've come to the conclusion that they wanted to break ISS up and deliver them as individual Azure-based components. So what we're seeing over the next 2 or 3 months is a transformation from what was essentially a TAP program with ISS. That's now been moved into development purely as IoT components sitting on Azure. So what you'll hear in the future is you'll hear less about ISS and more about Azure IoT services. So what I'm going to describe to you is essentially what CGI have done over the last 2 years, and in some way infer the complications and give you some best practices and some indications of where the platform's going. This is specifically geared at Microsoft, this talk, but I will emphasize that what we're building and what a lot of other people are building is not necessarily based on Azure or Azure IoT technologies. There are other providers are available. So let's get into it. Last year, Satya Nadella approached the CEO of TKE, which is ThyssenKrupp Elevators. Some of you will be aware of who they are. ThyssenKrupp were very interested in figuring out how to transform their business over the next 12 to 24 months, and they were looking at how to use IoT to do that. They had no idea themselves how they could enable or take further their SCADA systems that they've been using for some time, and they wanted something fresh and invigorating for their business. So we were approached, so CGI were approached, and we all travelled over, the team travelled over to Redmond to speak with TKE and with Microsoft and figure out how we could actually build a solution, or more specifically a proof of concept, which would allow TKE to transform the way in which they monitor and maintain and deliver contract services to their clients and their customers. So this is just kind of an outline for you, kind of how we got into it, what we actually did is a proof of concept. We did that within 8 weeks from the initial request, so a very, very short time to market to deliver the proof of concept. As a byproduct of delivering that proof of concept to the board of TKE, we won ISS Partner of the Year, and we are now physically in a deployment phase with TKE. So what was the driver for ThyssenKrupp elevators was that, as with this statement you see on the screen here, they wanted to take it to the next level with their preventive and predictive and preemptive maintenance, and what they wanted to do was to offer contract-based uptime to their customers, and that was no short order, obviously, and they were looking for IoT to provide that. Now, TKE are a very large company. They've been doing elevators for well on 50 years now. Yeah, sorry, I've just been prompted by Adele. There may be a challenge with the audio. We're just checking that now, so bear with us, guys. Sorry. Yeah, I think we're fine. So if you have any problems, just ping Adele, and we'll try to deal with it. So back into the flow. So essentially what we were trying to do with TK was to deliver a system that could be worldwide enabled, and we chose the Azure platform to do that. Now, we know that there are many different ways of doing that, and a lot of people have been building their own solutions. The reason that we've chosen Azure to do this is the platform we wanted to deliver to our customers as a means by which they can actually utilize the IoT services. We wanted to build that on Azure ourselves. We wanted to deliver that as a global solution. We're going to describe how we've done that in future slides. But essentially what we're essentially trying to do was to give back to the engineers and to the supervisors within the field the ability for them to be able to report on and to act very, very quickly against a lot of those errors and those problems that they foresaw coming from within their elevator network. So what we did was we build on Azure. We built a cloud monitoring system which takes from data from the devices and pushes it up through Azure into a data lake, which we then we reason over that data, and I'm going to describe in detail how we do that. We have built ourselves something called the IEF, and that's the Intelligent Enterprise Framework. It's built on an industrial scale, and it allows us to utilize the IoT services that are provided on Azure and deliver up an individual service to our clients. So at this point, what I normally do is we would show you the ThyssenKrupp video, and obviously we tested this earlier, and obviously we've got frame rate issues, so we can't actually show you that over the moment. It's a very short video. It's only about 3 minutes long, and it will give you an indication. So at the end of the talk, we're going to share out a number of links out on YouTube that you can play through, and this will describe in detail and very quickly. And you can use this if you want to talk to your customers or you want to get a better idea of what we were doing. That will be available for you to view on YouTube, and we'll send you the links after we've done that. So to give some idea, now we've got on the call, we've got CIOs, we've got CTOs, but we've also got developers. So what I wanted to do here was just to take a bit of time to show you what we developed and what was actually proof of concept delivered to ThyssenKrupp board. So what you see here is a web interface which was actually developed specifically for the Surface, and you'll see in the video that you'll see later on, you'll see the engineers actually using this. So we've got some charms down the side, we've got a location map in the middle, and you'll see a red peg on there. That red peg relates to the building, Pro Sports Club, in the middle. Down the left-hand side, where we can see individual alerts, we can see the individual assets, and we have an administration page as well to administer the front end. which will be based on your logon. If you look on the top right-hand corner, you'll see a photograph, and you'll also see an ID. That ID has security levels, so depending on whether you're a supervisor or whether you're an engineer, when you look at your IoT monitoring system, you will see different things depending on who you are, your standard security model stuff. So what we see here is the Pro Sports Club has a 2 against it. That's showing that there are actually 2 assets, but there's a red highlight and a bang showing that there's a problem with that. If you click into that, you would then see the asset, and you would then be able to click into the asset, and we can again the actual video shows this in greater detail. All the assets are listed where there's obviously green and there is a tick. That's showing that that particular site and the elevators in that site are all working well. There's also a matrix on the right hand, a legend matrix on the right hand side, so that you can see different items. So the red is obvious that there's an error or there's a problem with the lifts at that site. The blue plus sign is where an elevator device has come online but it hasn't been approved by an engineer. One reason why that's important is because essentially what we want to do here is to make sure that that nobody can just add a lift into a maintenance schedule without approval by the engineer themselves. So the way that the particular device is added in, there is a security context for the device against the actual monitoring system, and then you have to have that particular key to be able to add the device in. So giving the engineer control in the field about how a device comes in and how it's actually taken out. The amber sign is that that it's been registered as a problem. An engineer is on site and he is dealing with the problem, and the green, as I said, is everything is fine. So what we have here, I haven't done a comprehensive list of this, but it just shows you, this is standard web interface stuff. This is using RESTful APIs. It's using Azure services, and so this is what we as CGI have built on top of the ISS or Azure IoT components and deliver. And this is all very, very simple stuff, kind of standard MVC and standard .NET development. So we built what you see here as a front end, and it's a managed front end, so it also has command and control. When you click on a building, you see the asset. When you click on the asset, you can actually see the asset going up and the lift going up and down. You can see what floor it's at, and you can also control that. Now there are obviously security issues around that, but you can then you can control that device. You can open and shut doors. That feature is called command and control. So it's very adaptable, and obviously this is an example of lifts, but again, you can probably think about your customers and think about people that you interact with, and the types of things. Manufacturing is an area that we're extremely strong in, and looking for to deliver. To deliver these particular solutions, in any type of sector. Anything that you want to control, any device that you want to be able to see, can be manipulated through a system like this. So we're clicking through. Sorry, there's a delay on screen. So we've had a failure on screen. Bear with us, guys. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. That was a link to the actual development platform, and it's just bounced us off. So sorry about that. So this, you haven't missed any slides. This is the next slide. So when you're looking at again, this pretty much a bit of a development slide, but also what this serves to do is to show you all of the kind of components that we're using within Azure. more importantly, also the fact that these are the sorts of things that you need to be interested in. These are the sorts of things that will constitute how you can deliver an IoT-based system from from the Microsoft stack. So what's important here really is to identify with either your own skill sets or things that you feel that you want to be interested in. These are the sorts of things that we have been involved in and have been utilizing as part of that way, the ability to deliver this. At the bottom where it says interfaces, one of the key things for us, and I'll talk about this in more detail in a minute, is our ability to be able to integrate the IoT device end of what we're doing with SAP and Oracle. So we got a problem with the screen? We have a problem with the screen again. Yeah, okay, I think we're good. Yeah, this is a challenge this afternoon. My apologies. Complex maybe, yeah. So the important thing here is to note that when you're building these systems, or if you choose to use Azure, that's absolutely fine. And the Azure system has the ability to integrate with a number of different systems. You've recently heard the announcements from Oracle and SAP. And when you're building your systems, make sure that you look to the interfaces and make sure you've got those integration points. That's something that we've heavily concentrated on. One of the key things here at the end of the day, yes, it's great to have this data. You've collected all this wonderful data from your devices, but how do you turn that into profit? And one of the key areas here, obviously, is the BI and the analytics. One of the areas that we found as part and parcel of what we were doing is that we needed to have good data scientists on board, and we utilized a couple of people from Microsoft as well as our own BI teams when we were delivering our proof of concept. And they, at the end of the day, they made the actual difference. So those integration points with SAP, Oracle, JD Edwards, PeopleSoft, or any other type of source data that you have, whether that be manufacturing data or whether it be supply chain, all of those things are really important for you to be able to reason over this data that's coming from these devices, be able to mash this data together, and to be able to create new insight. So I'm shamelessly showing this this Microsoft slide. Some of you may have seen it before. It's been bandied around the IoT world for a little while, but I think it's important to show this. If you are very new to IoT, this is a great slide to show your boss or to show your colleagues. If we start from the bottom, we can see the intelligent devices that basically constitute those devices that we used to use. Wish to use. Very big at the moment is home automation, the retail sector, and any type of sort of general manufacturing equipment, power meters, load meters, all of them. You can read all of those there. All of this stuff is, in one way, shape, or form or another, is becoming part of the IoT sphere. And the ability for you to be able to do things with those devices, either through monitoring, remote access, distributing the content from software or physical assets, managing and configuring those assets as well, is all part and parcel of the IoT world. The reason that we have used Azure and we are engaging with Microsoft at the moment is the time to market. We found it extremely important with having a global delivery management and monitoring system like Azure, and our ability to be able to utilize the components that are contained within have really made a difference between creating custom line of business apps, tools, visualizations, and I'll talk to some of the skill sets that I think are currently important with respect to Azure. Now, just to be clear, Azure is a very large thing. They are releasing, almost probably I'm seeing at least one release, every couple of weeks of a particular service or a component on Azure. So it's now coming to the point where you can't just be an Azure specialist. You really do have to be focusing on a particular area within Azure. And across the top, obviously, the sectors and the areas. I think the key thing to note here is, and again, we'll talk about this in a moment, but the key thing to note here, people aren't buying IoT specific. They're buying a solution. They're buying business transformation. IoT is just the enabler, and I think that's probably the key message when I'm presenting around the world. I mean, most people say to me, yeah, well, we'd like to play this and then figure out what we can make out of it. No, that really doesn't work as a concept. The businesses that are coming to us that we're running into proof of concepts with, they usually have a very specific view of the world. They have a specific question that they want to answer, and they understand from their perspective that IoT is the potential enabler for that. So it's very important to kind of understand that when you're talking to your customers, be very clear that your customer understands what he's trying to achieve from a proof of concept around IoT. So a little bit of a shameless plug here. We, CGI, have a team in the UK who have essentially built the framework that you see in front of us. We've kept it very simplistic as you look at it, but everything in red is what CGI builds and delivers. Everything in blue at the moment, as I said, our specific engagement is with Microsoft, so everything that's in blue at the moment is what you see is what Microsoft actually deliver. So to describe out this particular framework, I will start at the bottom with the agent gateway. So imagine that is the device. It is the sensor that you've implemented. Now, a sensor from Microsoft's standpoint can be a number of things. The proof of concept that we did with TKE wasn't actually done on a Windows device. It was done on a Linux mini computer that sits as the controller on the actual lift. So we proved that connectivity and the way to deliver that data is not dependent on Microsoft technologies throughout the stack. So it's very important to note that there is a great deal going on in the open source community around agents and gateways. As I said, the reason we chose Microsoft at the moment really is the endpoint delivery mechanism for our analytics and our UIs and our visualizations, and that's better enabled for us for a time-to-market perspective to use Microsoft at the moment. So here's the key point about this slide. Everything in blue can be an other. It can be source data, it can be CSVs, it can be an SQL, it can be a resource management database, any type of data facility that you wish to consume that data from. And what we've built, and depending on the people that are listening, you might want to build this type of thing yourself. Essentially, this gives us the ability to have a framework that's modular and utilizing the source data from whatever service. Whenever we engage with our customers, we say, you can have this data injected into Azure, or we can consume it from your from secure on-prem, or you can copy data into Azure and we can consume it that way. There is no fixed way of consuming or delivering that data. So the key point here, when you look at this slide, really, when you're talking about delivering a sort of transformation to the business, again, you want to know what that question is that you're answering. You want to then understand how you're going to utilize analytics and your data warehousing tools, how you're going to build out APIs that might be specific to a sector or otherwise. So within this framework you see here, you see the box there that says APIs. Inside that API box, we're building out a transport API, a health industry API. So what we're allowing us to do is to build these RESTful APIs and these web services that allow us then for the portals and the application services that we deliver to our customers, we can use those APIs to make those standard calls. And then we're utilizing analytics and data warehouse tools to then supplement views into our UI and visualizations. And obviously, security, policy management off to the right, we've got service management, and we've got orchestration and billing. And they're all kind of, those large clumps on the side are all standard things that you need to do. I mean, the core of what we're delivering above and beyond the collection of data out of Azure is, all the secret source is in our intelligent enterprise framework. And again, anyone can build that sort of framework. So the key fact here, the key takeaway really here is that that anything in blue can be any type of source data. And when we're delivering and building out our IoT solutions, that's what the differentiator for us at the moment is utilizing Azure to provide that. Essentially, one of the major reasons is basically the global capability of Azure. So just to finish off this slide, the grey area is essentially talking about the telco element, where you've got SIM-based connectivity or with any customer that you're engaging with, the chances are he's already probably got a telco strategy on board. So what we tend to say with that is that, you know, we'll incorporate and we'll work with your telco strategy. We're not there to redefine it, and that's kind of an important point, because we don't want to be redefining a telco strategy necessarily as a part of this delivery. We can do, and we have done in the past. What we're finding now is that the actual telcos want to actually engage with us. So, you know, we're talking to people like Telefonica, Tele2, and a number of others within Europe, because they're interested in how they can provide and deliver this service as well. So again, you can build a service that you can OEM or white label, and if you're utilizing Azure to do that, you can deliver that globally. So I'll move on to the next slide. So what happens next? So you've got this data. It's all very well. You know, you've managed to convince your client that you can do something with the data that you're collecting from his devices and his sensors. But you know, how do you take it to that next step and that next level? And what I was referring to is better described and better visualized in this next slide. So at the bottom left, we've got ISS, which, as I said, now is called Azure IoT Services. We take that data in, and then one of the key elements of the framework that we've built is, and it's the question that most clients ask us. So, well, okay, you've got the data now. You know, how are you going to wow us? How are you going to get our interest? And essentially, it's about thinking about the next level of delivery, which is integration, really. So, if you're thinking about Dynamics, CRM, and ERP, you might think about the context of, you know, how do you kind of effect into the manufacturing process that data that you've got from the field? How do you take that data? How do you reason over it and make judgment calls and make predictions about how the manufacturing process for those devices that you've created, and not the device you're monitoring, but actually the device monitoring on the object that you're actually monitoring. How do you actually then infer that back into the reasoning process, and how do you then inform the manufacturing process about how well the object that you're monitoring is working? You know, will that allow you to adapt and change the actual manufacturing process, or even your supply chain, where, you know, the utilization of your service will mean that perhaps you don't need to produce so much of a particular object before you're actually, before time. So one of the key things here is that devices is actually starting to inform other parts of the business quite clearly. And we found with TKE is that if you look to the bottom right-hand side, we see mobility in the apps. When you see the video, you'll actually see an engineer utilizing that app, being able to make judgment calls about how his day runs, what types of jobs he does, what types of pickups of spare parts he does, based on what he's seeing in real time. And that's where there is a real differentiator for someone like TKE, because an engineer can spend 2 or 3 hours a morning deciding what parts that he needs for a particular lift or an elevator that he needs to fix that day. Does he need to do it in a specific order? Does he need to go to the drop point in the morning or in the afternoon? And so it's starting to inform that whole process. This was one of the clear indicators for TKE. So if you look off to the side, you'll see data feed integration, and I'm going to bounce to the next slide. So what this really is illustrating is, as what I've said before, is make sure that whatever framework you build, whatever type of service you're delivering, is open, is modular, is componentized, however you want to call it. Make sure that you've got data feeds, make sure that you've got integration points into your framework. Once you've got that data, what are you going to do it? How are you going to visualize it? How are you going to deliver and connect it into your Office 365 or your SharePoint? How are you going to utilize that static manufacturing data or supply chain data? So one of the important points is when you're building these frameworks, make sure that you leave room for that, because as we move forward, you've seen Microsoft have clearly stepped up their game, and Oracle and SAP have seen the light of day, and we have those integration points, and we have that stuff happening in Azure. So, why shouldn't that be happening within your applications and the frameworks and the services that you wish to design and deliver? So, the last slide here is on this particular topic is around taking that integration to a deeper level. So we've been talking about Azure, but cloud provider X, Amazon, whatever type of service you want, again, can be plugging in or should be plugging into your framework. You should be able to support data integration points from any particular area. As we move forward, you may decide that you want to do your development on Amazon too. There's no real, this is not a selling shop for Microsoft. It just shows you that there is the ability to do that, and it's important when you're looking at IoT solutions to make sure that you're not pigeonholing yourself into a particular corner, a decision point about how you're going to deliver it, how you're going to develop it, and what you and the ways in which you'll actually give that wow factor to your customer. So. That's that's the kind of shameless plug for the way in which we're doing it, but it gives you a general idea about how we're doing it. So one of the key areas about this, we're running up to the kind of the last slide here, is what do you do with all that data once you've got it? What we've found is that the use of data and that is, it can be very expensive. Again, I'll talk to that point in a minute. But here, what we're looking at here on this particular slide is, data needs to be managed and it needs to be utilized in its best context. So there are two parts really to this slide, and that is that obviously with IoT you have the ability to manage and see real time or what we call near real time alarms and alerts. That's the core of what a lot of people think IoT is about. But let's be clear here. You're collecting so much data and you're refining those collection points, or you should be, over a period of time. It's very expensive to pull data off devices if you've got a constant stream. So one of the key things here is you want to be looking to make sure that you're utilizing intelligent end devices, so that you are only collecting data that you need and that is useful to what you need to do. So what you see here, clear ways for delivering a maintenance due report is through data analytics. But as you get a long tail on your data, you want to be able to produce business reports on a monthly level. You want to be able to inform the machine learning process, and so that you can you can tune the model that you're and the way that you're delivering your report based on historical data as well. So you have a clear idea about how you want to deliver the data, how you want to manage that data, and make sure that it's it's delivering on a daily basis a really clear idea about the business model that you're trying to, the solution model that you're trying to give to your customer. So keeping with the theme of Hollywood movies, so what you need to do next summer. So if you're delivering, if you are actively involved with IoT or you're looking to get into it, these are some of the things that you need to be thinking about. Okay, so what we found with TKE is that they already had a massive amount of obviously lifts within their current environment, 1.2 million to be exact. But they also had a core set of lifts that had a Linux system that already could be contacted and could be remotely controlled. So one of the things here is to look at the assets that you've already got. Look to see how you can remotely manage, and can you pick off some low-hanging fruit with respect to the services that you wish to give to this customer. But can you look at this customer kind of in a brownfield way? Can you get his devices up and running? Can you get them connected in without actually having to redeploy devices? That's a very, very important point. We were able to do that with TKE. They had 48,000 lifts that were running a Linux system, so we were able to contact those systems, to update them, to download software onto them, and then basically to bring those devices online extremely quickly. And that's what we're currently doing at the moment. So we didn't have this heavy lifting stuff of actually deploying devices out to the field. They were already there. So also think about IoT. For some systems and some ways that they are delivered, IoT is not it's not really about control and real time. What we tend to talk about when we're talking about, certainly within our Azure Azure delivery, a near enough type of environment. So be very careful about the kind of words that you use with people. So open standards are becoming more prevalent. You know, have a search on Google, have a look around, see what other open standards and protocols are being used and being touted for use around IoT. We've recently been talking with the Windows 10 team in Redmond. They've informed us that that there will be a local gateway functionality baked into Windows 10. So again, that's something else to look out as far as skilling up is concerned. I mentioned this before, smart edge. You know, the idea is that the actual device itself will get smarter and smarter. You'll be able to do some control and configuration around those devices. You know, it's important the data that you send. It's important the quality of that and the period with which you send it. You know, and the point there is that, you know, don't send rubbish to the cloud, because, you know, it will eat up time, it will eat up effort and money. Data is not free. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the model with Azure, and this is, you know, one of the gives and the gets, is that you know, the ingress of data is free, but the egress of data, you're pulling it out of the system, is not. So think about your architecture, think about where your data's going, how much it's going, and what you want to do with it. Event handling, again, as I alluded to, alerts and alarms is absolutely key to successful implementation. You know what you're trying to measure, understand the parameters under which you're essentially trying to report and manage, and make sure that that's a constant process, that you're going backwards and forwards and looking at those events that you're gathering, and essentially how you're reporting on them. At the moment, again, this is not a Microsoft flag waving exercise, but at the moment, the building blocks from MS are really good. They're consistent. They are well, the documentation is a little flaky at the moment, but everything that actually gets fully released on Azure is usually well documented. So at the moment, we're utilizing Microsoft, but keep your eyes open for open source. We've been looking and keeping a careful eye on both SAP and Oracle as well, but we haven't seen anything to the size and the scale and the operational use as much as the Azure components. And hybrid cloud strategies are great. It's a good way to get people involved. A lot of people don't want to put everything in the cloud. People want to be able to utilize data that's statically held or on-prem. So implement hybrid cloud strategies and maybe kind of do something, some of that that BI and that reporting and those portals within the hybrid context. So this is essentially the last slide before questions. So the key takeaways really for today are that if you've got a customer in mind, if you've got a project or something you want to do, start small. One of the big things at the moment is the sort of control mechanisms that you can have around robots and small robots that you can buy. The Raspberry Pi stuff is really good. And there's plenty of stuff on the Azure development portals and blogs to show you how you can actually do that. If you're dealing with sort of bigger customers, qualify the customer. That's really important. Understand what he's trying to do. Make sure that he understands that you're not there to implement an IoT solution to play around with and then try to figure out how you can make money out of it. You need to kind of know what what the gives and the gets are from the get-go. And the shiny object syndrome is probably anybody who's techie will understand that. This is great stuff to play around with, but when you're talking about enterprise level delivery, make sure you get down to the fundamentals with the customer and understand what he's trying to do before you start investing your own time, but potentially your company's dollars on something that is just a kid in the toy store type of scenario. Key one here: businesses don't buy IoT. They are looking to create profit. In some cases, cost reduction, although that's probably not one of the strongest reasons you should do this. But we've had it with customers, they're looking for both. So the key thing here is and the key terminology that we use is business transformation. So I'm conscious of time, but I know we kind of started a little bit late, so it is 7 o'clock, guys. Appreciate if you need to drop off. Just a quick point before I carry on the rest of the slides. The slides and the recording will be sent out tomorrow, and you'll be able to see those. So again, for those who need to leave, apologies for the late delay. So as I was saying before, legacy is where the money is, brownfield. If you can hit those clients or those customers that are interested in doing this, and they've already got devices out in the field, they've got monitoring systems that have some kind of IP stack, or they have a connectivity to the internet, then there's a chance that you can create some money. You can create opportunities with that customer in a very, very short space of time. Another one of those things is home automation, and fitness bands are great. They're great for press. They're great for lines in the sun and in the mirror, but they're not for revenue. Be really clear that there is a marketplace for home automation and fitness band, but it's going to be the likes of Panasonic and Jawbone and those guys, and they're going to be looking at creating those sorts of services to deal with that. And obviously, you probably recently heard that Nike have reduced all of their investment in that because Apple is essentially going to be able to deliver that system for them. So again, be really clear about where the money is. And it may be there for some small niche and bijou companies that are quite happy to work in that space. But if you're looking for real revenue, it's about numbers. It's about devices out in the field. And yeah, the value is not in the connectivity of those devices. Really, at the end of the day, it's that data that you get off it. But more importantly, it's what you do with that data and how you create insights on that data, either with or without. Insights in the context of the object that you're monitoring itself, or more specifically and more in depth in how you take that data and then you overlap it in a Venn diagram context with other data that's informing you about what the business is doing and how that's working. So that's really, really, really important. And as I've made this point. Yeah, you need a business case. You need a really good business case. You need a strong question from the customer saying that this is what I'm trying to achieve, and then you need to establish whether IoT is an enabler for that. Again, a little bit of a shameless plug there. You need good relationships. We've been chosen as the only global service integrator in the world, so the GSI, to be able to do this. But it's not going to be long. There's going to be plenty of people, and we know that there are very small niche companies out there doing that and being very, very successful. So the idea really here is that this is a very brief, very wide and open introduction to IoT and what that means. And what we're going to try to do is have a more sort of feet on the ground kind of whiteboard session very soon. And what we'll seek to do in that is for me to describe how we actually did the actual integration and how we actually did the development work, but more specifically, how you can start within IoT. So I've got just one other quick slide here, so I've just remembered that I've injected this at the end. So, if you're trying to figure out, maybe you've got good development skills, or you're really excited about Azure, like I am. From my perspective, Azure is almost as important as the deployment, of the release of NT. That's how significant I think it is, and that's just wider than the IoT context. So for at the moment, though, if I'm going out, in my profession context to go and hire people, I'm going to be looking for people with Azure specialisms, as I said at the beginning of the presentation. So, let's be really specific here. We're looking for people, or you should be looking to skill up on things like machine learning, event hubs, document DB, and stream analytics. Have a better and a deeper understanding of MVC and whatever the .NET current version is. It's moving so rapidly. So those are the things that we're looking at for the employment of new people to come into our team in the future. But in the wider context, those are the things that kind of really matter at the moment. And again, there will be more. Probably in the next 4 weeks, there'll be a release of something else on Azure. So have a look at those things. Go on to the Azure.com website. Have a look at these things. See what they constitute, and have a look around on MSDN or otherwise to get some more deeper understanding of these specialisms. Okay, so that's about it. I get a very dry throat here, so I'm probably losing my voice, but it's 7:05. Thanks very much for staying with us. We're going to open it up for some questions, and it can be on any subject around IoT or related. We'll be very happy to answer that for you. So, Adele, I'll hand it back to you. Okay, we've got. I'm going to ask Adele to say it again loudly, so then I'll repeat the question. But oh yeah, very much. How long is a piece of string question? But if I could put it into the context of the TKE one, was that we were, they were looking to be able to change the way in which they wrote their contracts. That was very important to them. The only way they could do that is to actually understand what their lifts are doing on a day-to-day basis, to get real in-depth data around how their lifts were performing, more specifically which parts were breaking, and then for that information to feed back into the supply chain, into the spares and the management process. So what they've been able to do, and they, as we said, we've only literally just started doing this, they are able to inform their manufacturing and their delivery of spare parts to their locations and to the correct locations. And in some cases, they're looking to actually deliver that to the customer so that when the engineer arrives. So what this serves to do is to limit the amount of time that the engineer is actually spending validating the type of part that he needs. It's already been tagged that there's a particular problem with a lift. They understand through their own information systems, which then it's fed back into the interface that the engineer sees. He's able then to know that it's it's 1 and 2 or it's 1, 2, 3 or 4. The problem with that particular lift has it has a weighting. And that lift then, then that report will then inform the engineer that he has to have this particular type of spare part. And what that's doing is bringing the time down to fixing that lift, and that is then delivering back the lift into full operational capacity, thereby meeting the SLA. So that's an example, a direct example that we know is working today. Hopefully that answers your question. I say. So I've got some. Right, I've got some other questions. Just bear with me a second, guys. So I can only see one. Oh, okay, I can see it now. I've undocked it. Okay, great, guys. Okay, so the second question: what messaging protocols were you using between the devices on the lifts and Azure? So I'd have to check for that one for you, Finton. Thank you very much for the question. Again, just trying to, yeah, I mean, the way, to give you the, okay, without totally describing the protocol, because I can't remember it off the top of my head, but essentially the way it works is that there's a Linux board that's sitting on the controller system for the lift. That, and in turn, is connected to a communications motherboard, which on it had a fixed line which wasn't used, and a modem with a SIM in it. So that's how the majority of what their management systems are doing. So they're doing it essentially over 3 or 4G. As far as the protocols actually used, I can't remember off the time, but I can get that answer for you and get it back to you. So third question: how many sensors or SIM card do you need for a lift to get all these data? So thanks for the question, Gene. In the context of the one that we were using for TKE, we were using, there was basically one SIM, but the board actually had 2 SIMs and one as a backup, and if that SIM or that particular part of the modem failed, then you could actually transfer it over. I think it was automatic. So in essence, one. And obviously, as I said before, the most important factor here is what are you sending, how often are you sending it. We understand that there are also restrictions and security restrictions in some cases around the way in which lifts have to be able to be connected. The majority of the lifts, based on security control and the health and management systems, require a fixed line. But obviously, in more remote buildings, they rely pretty much on the SIM 3G connection. In some cases, there are Wi-Fi as well. But one SIM was enough for this, and we were able to deliver a sub 30-second alert from a, we did this in live in real time. We broke the actual lift, and it took something like 27 seconds from the point where the lift broke to the actual red pin appearing on the screen. So, given the connectivity, it's got to go out, it's got to go out, it's got to go through the Wi-Fi network, sorry, the GSM network. It's then got to hit Azure. It's got to go up through the Azure, up into our alert system, and then back out again to the web service, and then presented into the browser. So, kind of sub 30 seconds is probably the amount of time, but we have actually seen it faster than that as well. So, and again, it all does depend on your connectivity. Right, that's the 3 questions we had. Is there anything else anybody would like to ask? We'll just give you a minute to type it in if you have. I'll just say while we are waiting for anybody else to type a question is, if you're interested in knowing the kind of the real if you're really interested in getting into the nuts and the bolts of how CGI have built and designed their system, and more specifically how we use Azure to do this, we'd be very interested to find out, if you have an interest in doing a meet and greet, which we're very interested in doing with eSynergy. And what we might even do is open it up wider to kind of Azure observations on Azure and the implementation of Azure componentry as we go forward, because it's bigger than just the IoT topic. Another question from Jean. So Dean's asking more specifically about security. Jean, very simply. At the moment, I mean, I could go into more detail, but if you imagine essentially a standard secure key for each device is handled. So if you remember when I showed you the front interface for that, and there was the legend with the blue cross, that infers that a device is ready to come on. So you basically configure the device either in with the software stack from a Linux perspective or a gateway. You then input the device ID for that particular, you associate it with the device that's connected on the network. That key is extremely long. I think it might be 56 characters or something, and then that key is then placed into the connection management system within Azure, and not until those two end pieces connect and agree can the device actually talk directly to the Azure service for the IoT service. So you have that in place. As far as the general security context around your data and around accessibility, that's all done in the normal context of Active Directory for user, supervisor, group management, and for connectivity in standard KPI, standard Azure and NT connectivity. So it's all industry standard stuff. Azure, as you may well or may not know, is Pentagon approved. It also has IL2 approval in the context of security from the government perspective. So we are just expecting that security to maintain pace and cadence with the requirements. It's not super secure cleared as in IL3 or top secret, but it's certainly more than your average security context. So don't expect IoT to be remiss in basically utilizing the standard protocols and standard security contexts that are available within Azure. So again, Gene, that's kind of probably better done with a whiteboard, a pen, and a nice pint of ale. So there's, guys, it's very difficult within an hour to sum up 18 months worth of experience, and I'm much better looking in person. So hopefully you guys, if you'd like to get together and do a whiteboard session, we'd eSynergy Solutions would love to host that for you. And I'm going to be jetting around the world doing these similar sorts of things in front of a number of clients, and hopefully within the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks, if you guys are interested in knowing more and understanding how we're approaching IoT, which is, again, let's be very clear, it's only one way of doing it. There are many different ways of approaching that, and but we look forward to being able to do a face-to-face with some of you guys, and look forward to meeting you. So I hope you've got something from the presentation. I hope you've enjoyed you know, a real-life experience of how to deliver and what to expect from delivering an IoT solution. So I just want to say thank you very much to eSynergy Solutions for hosting this and giving me the opportunity to discuss IoT with you today. So I don't see any more questions. Thanks for your nod, Gene. I appreciate that. So thanks for all the questions, and look forward to seeing and speaking to you guys very, very soon. And so thanks very much. That's the end of the seminar. We'll send out the slides for you tomorrow, guys. Thank you very much indeed.